Welcome to the Greater Culture Podcast, where we have conversations about how to elevate the quality of life through movement, nutrition, recovery, and mindset practices. Well, welcome to another episode of the Greater Culture Podcast. Your host, Brad Marshall, and today I'm joined by the owner of Level 6, Emmitt. Thanks so much for taking some time to hang out with us today.
Listen, Brad, thanks so much for having me on, man. It's just great to be connected with awesome people like yourself in the community, and we can get on and discuss these topics in detail, but just have a good time and get the message out there. And I can already tell you and I think very similarly about a lot of this stuff. So I'm excited to see where today goes, man. It should be, we'll get into some, I'm sure, some good territory.
Yes, I love connecting with other folks who are similar in their mindset and their passion for helping other people. And so, Emmitt, the owner of Level 6, help our folks out. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to be the owner of the brand and helping people to move a little bit better and increase the quality of their life? So tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you come to become the owner of Level 6?
Man, that's an awesome question, and it's kind of a crazy story, but I'll try to give you guys the cliff notes of how I got here. First of all, Level 6 Training, I guess my company and our team, we've been around for a little over 2 years now. And it really started with a mission to bring something that's been a lifelong dream of mine to fulfillment inside of Fuquay-Varina. And I'm sure you've gathered this by now, Brad, and you've had enough conversations with people. Finding space is step number one. And then, just with the inventory and kind of what's available out there, it's hard to get that, brick and mortar, that place and have that location. It's accessible to the people of Fuquay, but it really is the fulfillment of kind of a lifelong mission that I've had to have my own gym and have it be a place that influences people positively, not just within the context of a workout, which is in all the other verticals of life that fitness touches. And I know that you're a ride or die fitness guy. I see you deadlifting a bazillion pounds in the gym and all that. So I know that you feel the same way about the subject as I do. And I'm very passionate about it because I think it all started for me as a lifelong athlete. I was always looking for ways to improve my natural performance. Hey, how can I get as good at football naturally? I didn't want to cheat. I didn't want to take any shortcuts. So I really started to dive deeply into nutrition. And then even throughout my entire athletic career, I always imagined, hey, one day I'm going to have a gym. And what if it could look like this? And then that conversation in my head really just started with what could it be, right? So I was always compelled by the vision of kind of like my own daydreams, I guess. But in the greater sense, then being able to take that back and really land in a place like Fuquay-Varina, which is so family oriented and so filled with good people, left, right, center, middle. It's just good people everywhere you turn, every street corner. And so to be able to have an impact in a community that's tight, it's a smaller town. And it's very touching because it means more to those people that are your neighbors, that are, their kids go to school right down the street from you. And it's awesome to have an impact when those people are so close to you. I think I say that because there's so much out there on social media that's having an impact globally, and you get a website and that's a global thing and all that's great, but it can't be lost on us that as Americans, it's great to get back into the community that we live in and really provide a service that's worthy and provides for the people. So, that's kind of the vision. And then as far as actually getting into the space, honestly, man, I'm a man of faith myself. And I think that God has had his hands all over this because from the very beginning, we just started a subletting space. As you know, the structure that I now have the lease on was a yoga studio. Unfortunately, their business had taken a massive hit during COVID. And it opened up the possibility for us to be able to sublet, get in there, start some classes, see if we could gain some traction. And so I like to say it as I was actually able to build my wings, on the coattails of someone else's business to start. And, it's super unfortunate for them, but it landed us in the right spot. And we're just really blessed to have been able to kind of move into that and then have it work out well for them where we could take things over. So it really was a stroke of luck and timing, I would say. mean, I'd like to get on here and say it's hard work and all that, but as you well know, timing and luck have a lot to do with, these types of things. And so that's kind of how we came to be in downtown Fuquay, and we're blessed to be there.
Yeah. And one of the things, it's interesting always to hear people's stories of, whether they were a former athlete or how they came to find fitness for themselves and movement and trying to improve their own performance. And then eventually you're like, how do I bring this to other people? How can I impact people's lives? And it sounded like for you, there was almost a change of, okay, I love this for myself and my own performance, but now how do I bring this to other people in a way that's accessible so that they don't maybe have to go run their 40-yard dash as fast as they possibly can, but they can have a better quality of life. So talk to us a little bit about maybe what that transition look like, or when did you kind of figure out like, okay, I really love movement and fitness, and now I want to figure out how do I take this to other people? And what did that look like? Was there a process for you to get certified in certain ways or start coaching people, or how did you come to be a fitness coach?
Dude, that's an incredible question there, Brad. I really appreciate the depth of the questions you're asking, because it allows me to get into, the whole background and kind of my central why and my focus on why I wanted to become a fitness coach. So I'm going to take it way back for a second. When I was 10, okay, I had a very kind of awkward and chubby developmental year where I actually got, physically unfit at either 10 or 11 years old. And it was obviously like, pre-puberty and kind of in that in-between phase when you're still trying to figure things out and you're in your adolescent phase. And so I got a little fluffy and I was teased and picked on at school. And that didn't feel good. And I know all these kids on social media now and how much worse, unfortunately, it's gotten for so many of them, with being teased, being bullied, being cyberbullied, which wasn't really a thing, kind of in our era and all of that. But that pain, that was pretty painful, right? And it really opened my eyes to, wow, what we eat has a profound impact on the things that our body does, right? And like I'm discovering this at 10 years old, and my dad's in there and he's telling me, he's like, oh, and he said it in an offhand way, and I'll tell this same story to him, so he's well aware he said this, but it was essentially like, oh, you have that tire around your midsection, you'll probably always have that. And I just remember thinking to myself, even in that moment, I was like, no, I don't accept that. I don't accept that I will just always have that, and that's the way that things are going to be. And it literally, from that moment on, I can remember it kind of started this quest for me of like wanting to read all of the labels. Like at 10 or 11 years old, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, like reading the cereal box. What's in bagels? What is this ingredient I can't pronounce? Like it started a full-fledged fascination for me, even at that young, vulnerable, malleable age. And it was a couple years after that I started getting, pretty heavily into sports and getting pretty serious, and recognized that I could be a good player. I had the physical size. And so through those off-season workouts and really just pressing in and learning more and more about nutrition and more about training, it started this beautiful journey of like understanding more about it, where I went from this incredible point of pain where I was being literally like picked on, bullied, teased, made fun of, to wow, now like I've gained some self-esteem, I've gained some knowledge, and how do I prevent other people from having to suffer like I did? Which I know sounds kind of crazy, but that's a huge driving force for me, even to this day, is how do I prevent preventable suffering? And a lot of what we see, and I know you know this as a coach as well, with these poor people that come into our studios, come into our gyms, it's like these people are suffering. So it's like, how do we as coaches, as trainers, as gym owners and entrepreneurs provide a service that can limit the suffering of other human beings, or at least take away the needless suffering, right? These poor people like oftentimes don't have any concept of, wow, my nutrition affects my body. It affects my mental, spiritual, emotional game. It affects all my energy. So giving them that gift and trying to translate what I was then able to do for myself into something that's a lasting change for other people was really the central driving force for me as a coach to kind of get in the fitness and get a fitness game rather, and do it as a full-time thing. I mean, I've been a professional trainer now for just shy of 10 years. And, as a football player, you spend more time in the off season working out and training than you actually do playing the game. And it's substantially more. So you end up falling in love with the weight room and the weights and the conditioning. And so being able to also deliver that to people is fun, because I think there's something inside all of us that responds to that. And I think we all know on some level we need physical activity and movement. And there's quite a few people that aren't getting any of it. So, for me, it started way back. And like I said, I was blessed to kind of have this realization of knowing about where I would land, like starting around 12 years old, and then just kind of feeling my way through things and figuring stuff out along the way. And just really kind of staying, obviously the goals changed a little bit. Like when I first started, I wanted to train just professional athletes, like just NFL players. I thought that's what I was going to do. And then, the twist of fate or the universe or God or however you want to describe it sends you some interesting stuff. I ended up training mostly ladies, mostly, early 30s moms with one, maybe two kids, and realizing just how tough and how awesome they were as a group of clients, and tougher than some of the pro athletes that I've worked with in the past. I'll say that. Not to name anybody, but they're much tougher. So it was just really humbling to have changed my entire ideal about why I wanted to get in, and then realize, oh, this is how you serve people. Like when it started for me, it was like all about what was I going to get out of it? Oh, I was going to be, a celebrity trainer and work with the top end people. And now I realize, no, like when you take a role like this, it really is about service and helping people, to your language, prepare a greater quality of life and, achieve, in a sense, their best self. Like our tagline at Level 6 is build a better you. And that's essentially what it comes back to. And I think that fitness is a huge vehicle for that.
Yeah, it's amazing how that suffering or that pain can lead to so much change. And I think all of us can relate to that's what drives people through the door, is they have an idea of what maybe they would like to look like, feel like, or be like. Yeah. And they're looking to you to help them do that. And so to have that experience, even at a young age, and then let that be a driving force that now allows you to not only relate to people, but, connect with them, empathize with them, and then lead them on that journey forward, because we know that, they might be coming in the door to look a certain way, but when they start moving, like you said, that inner excitement around, hey, I'm getting a little bit stronger, I'm getting a little bit faster, I'm getting just moving things a little bit better. Like there's a confidence that comes with that. And there's a change that takes place, which is just so cool as a trainer to be able to influence and impact people's lives like that.
Absolutely. And I call it when the light bulb starts to kick on. You can see it like in their eyes, and there's just this determination that comes over people if they could just see that little tip, that little tier of progress, and they've sold themselves on themselves, which is the most exciting thing. It's like, wow, they realize they can affect change, they have control, and they're doing it for themselves. And so just like you said, man, it's exciting. And I think that's what still makes me so passionate to go in after doing it for 10 years. And I'm still just as excited as when I started back as a young trainer and thought I knew a lot and really learned. And even now it's funny. I feel like I know less now than I did then. And that applies to a lot of areas of life, not just training.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. It's funny how you go to school, you get educated, you start to work with folks, and you're like, oh, I'm starting to get the hang of this thing. And then now, being social media, the world has opened up, and you start learning and seeing what experts are doing out there. Like, wow, I thought I knew something, but now like my eyes are really opened up, and like you're trying to figure out, how do I take all this information and deliver it, whether it's a class setting or a one-on-one setting. And it's tough, but I can sense the excitement, which is one of the things we love to hear from our guests here, is like, what really is that motivator, or what gets you fired up or gets you excited? And it sounds like for you, it's turning those light bulbs on, of helping people to maybe realize, but also start to see what it's like to actually move the needle forward, or maybe make some changes in a positive direction. Would you say that is it? Or what are some of the other factors that really get you excited to get out of bed and work with folks in the morning?
That's a huge driver of it still to this day. And obviously, I think my main drivers have really changed as I've kind of segued from just trainer, just manager, just business partner to now like full blown entrepreneur. Obviously, there's so many demands that now come onto my mind on a daily basis, and a lot of times it can truly get overwhelming where you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to get all this done and still show up and be present and not only with people, but when I get home as a dad, as a husband, it's like, how do you start to decipher and filter through all these different layers and all these different roles you have to fulfill? And I would say right now it's most acutely the recognition that when I wake up in the morning, there are now close to 200 people that are counting on me to be that for them, to fulfill that role. And that's something that I don't take lightly. And I mean, I've already been able to share kind of a little bit why, but just being able to provide that for people on a daily basis and jump out of bed. And most of my days start around 4:30 in the morning. And that first class at our studio happens at 5:30. But just being able to come in there with energy. And I think a lot of the excitement comes from knowing that if these people stick with it, if they stick with the course of it, they're going to end up realizing a happier and more fulfilled version of themselves. And I think that's definitely part of it. And then just the interactions, like the small things with the clients that I get to experience every day. And, it is a community. It is something that is a shared experience by people, so we can all relate to it throughout the day. And it just makes it really fun. And, it doesn't make every day easy, but just having that anticipation of, all right, like what's on the menu today? What's the workout going to be? How are we going to dial it up for them today? And then, seeing them kind of battle through it and go through the struggle and go through the pain and even the doubt at times, like, can I really do this? And then the triumph, I think at the end, it's something that I think one of the personal reasons I love working out and challenging myself. And then, more so, I guess, maybe even the ability to witness other people overcome that. And it's about overcoming, right? Like at the end of the day, it's, wow, the bar is set high. I mean, I know you guys do crazy workouts in CrossFit. Like, wow, the bar is here. What do I really have inside? And I think that's that, at least for me, that's definitely one of the drivers.
Yeah, the excitement, and it's funny, as a former athlete and you being one too, you have those high moments where you're like, oh, you're out on the field and everybody thinks that's what you're going to miss most. But what ends up happening is it's those locker room moments. It's the moments 100%. Where you're having fun and interacting with each other. And it sounds like the same is true for you and your gym. And I know I've experienced that as well. It's like just the day in and day out process of showing up and having fun, enjoying the company you're with, enjoying some of the struggle. Like those are the things that really get you committed to a lifelong process, not just that big 5K, 10K competition, but like, hey, how do we settle in for life for this? Well, we can get a community. We can get people who are striving for some of the same things. And it sounds like for you, that community is a huge factor and motivator in getting you out of bed at 4:30 in the morning to get that first class rolling at 5:30.
It is. And you start to see some of the same faces and they're bought in. And so then it raises the bar subconsciously. Like it's not even stated explicitly, but it's, what the expectation level is. Okay, this is the environment that you've created. This is the community that you created. So you have to match that every time. And so it does kind of become a little internal competition with myself almost, which I know sounds kind of silly, but it's about raising the bar for yourself too, and can you deliver, and can you deliver a unique workout that's going to help people move forward and do it in an exciting way where it doesn't feel so much like drudgery that they want to come back, right? Because anyone can write a workout that just, kicks people's butt and they ship them out and maybe they'll come back, maybe they won't. But it takes a special skill to cultivate long-term change within people and ask them to do hard things and get them in a state where they're ready to come back and do it again the next day. And I think that's a huge differentiator between, just the standard person who puts together tough workouts and someone who's truly like a great coach that can get on people's level and realize where their people are at and doesn't lose touch with what's going on in the room.
Yeah, I think that's such a huge factor for coaches who are looking to level up their game is, okay, maybe I have some knowledge or insight about when we should push and pull and hinge and things like that and what combinations might work well. But it's like you said, it's the personal factor. It's building the relationships, understanding when do I have to push this person? When do I pull back? How do I continue to challenge them? How do I get them excited to walk through the doors of the gym? That can be just as powerful, if not more powerful than what the workout is that's on the board for that day. And so being able to cultivate that and build that skill set over the years is really critical. And one of the things I'm really curious about with you, you identified that the mission statement for Level 6 is build a better you. And for us, it's this idea of how do we elevate the quality of life. When you think about that mission statement, what comes to mind for you of like, what does it mean to build a better you, or maybe enhance sort of that quality of life that people are striving for, working for? What does that mean for you, and how do you help folks to do that?
Dude, that's awesome, man. And I love that our mission statements have so much overlap because we're ultimately after the same thing. And for me, build a better you, like first and foremost, is actually about the development of people's character more so than their physical self. And I know that sounds strange for like a gym owner to say, or someone who's, the CEO of any company. But when it comes to character development, I think that's something that societally is critically important, especially now. I think during the COVID years, I should say the primary COVID years, like the onset of COVID, we lost touch. I think a lot of us lost touch with what it means to be a developed person. I mean, like there were so many times where we'd be stuck at home or we'd be interfacing only with technology, and we literally couldn't see other people. And it almost boxed you into this life of, wow, I could literally live my life, and not that this would be fulfilling in any way, but like wouldn't have to leave the house, right? We can Instacart our groceries. We can meet each other and hang out over Google Meet or Zoom or any of these other platforms. So it's kind of eye-opening. It's like, wow, do we really have a character in society, or is it now are we descending into, well, we're just going to doom scroll TikTok all day and we're going to like each other's posts and do reactions, and like that's going to become the primary vehicle through which we communicate with others. And I think it's easy to get caught up in, hey, here's the technological world, here's convenience and ease. But it's like, no, these values matter, right? Like who you are as a person matters at the end of the day. Who you are as a man or a woman or a father or as a husband or a wife even, or a brother or a sister, like those roles within society, within your family, within your relationships matter. So I personally find that doing hard workouts and fitness in general is a great development of character, right? Like you have to have a little bit of grit to go out and run 7 miles. You have to have a little bit of grit to go in and do these crazy CrossFit workouts you guys devise, right? Especially when your heart rate's jacked and you got to do that next rep. Like that toughness that you are cultivating and going into the arena and the battlefield every day on that to me is directly applicable to all the verticals and avenues of life where you need to go in and, hey, you're a business owner. So things aren't going to go your way. Like I've had 7 things today that didn't go my way, right? Okay, cool. What are you going to do? You're going to sit in the corner and sob about it, or are you going to go out there and try to dig deep, go another round, go another rep, go another set, whatever it is mentally or for you, and get back in the arena and say, you know what, I'm not going to accept that. What can we do? How are we going to move forward? And start asking, the questions of how do you, get back in the hot seat, and I think, so that's the first aspect of build a better you, right? Develop people's character. And then obviously it's the physical sense. Like, we see this all the time, but people come to us and they're dealing with things. They're dealing with health issues, chronic disease, diabetes, hypertension, insomnia, anxiety, depression. And, exercise and movement in a lot of ways is, I don't want to say the cure, but it certainly is a huge vote in the direction of fixing a lot of these things and ridding these people of these problems. And they're just in a state where they haven't moved. They have a sedentary job. They're on Zoom calls 10 hours a day. particularly now. So I think that what you and I do, hopefully, will become increasingly important, and people will recognize, hey, in order to go out there and be productive, I need to develop my best physical self too. And you don't even have to have a physical job. Like, I think being fit and healthy is great for anything, whether you're a data analyst, or you're going out there and you're a professional fly fisherman, or whatever it is. I think everyone deserves to feel the energy, and perhaps the self-esteem, and perhaps the mental clarity, and all those things that come along with consistent movement, a strong body, sound mind. And so that's the second element of helping people build a better you. And I think that's, right up there with the first in developing people's character.
I absolutely love that you're able to articulate the different ways in which you can help to build a better you, with the character traits coming through, with the challenging workouts, and those moments where they probably don't even realize that they are building some of those character traits that are going to help and make them better people outside of the gym. And I love that
Sure.
when you can bring that in and start to get people to identify, hey, if we start looking at some of these traits of hard work and perseverance and just consistency and discipline, like those things you build in the gym, they pay off in volumes outside of the gym. And then from there, the ability to just be physically more capable. And what we're learning about that brain body connection, like you said, like movement is medicine in so many ways for some of the challenges we might be facing. And so if we can give people an opportunity to access that, experience that, they're not only going to build better character traits that are going to lead them to be better humans overall, but then they're also going to be more physically fit, stronger, more capable people that will hopefully have a good quality of life and enjoy that for a long time. So I love that you're able to articulate those two pieces. And when it comes to this idea of helping build a better you, are there certain practices or themes or things that you come to mind for you? I mean, I know when you look at us from the outside, it's like, oh, they're a gym. That means they're going to move. And that's certainly a major piece of it. But are there other practices or other things for you that you've either tried to help educate or work on with the clients that you get a chance to interact with on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think along with the quality of life thing, I think a common answer today might be that a quality life is one of a freedom of problems or a freedom from stress. And I don't think that's necessarily the right way to go with what quality of life means. Like, for me, it's freedom from chronic disease. It's the ability to get up and move. It's the ability to have autonomy. I read something recently where it's like people feel happy in the direct proportion to which they feel like they have agency and control over their own lives. And I think that people that aren't physically fit or well, they begin to feel trapped, right? And so right off the bat, they're losing that sense of autonomy physically. And so I think that affects a lot of people's happiness. And I think that's one of the many ways that movement can start to unlock that aspect and that element of quality of life for some people. But, I think that, there's a lot of things that go into that in terms of movement and prescription and exercise selection and how you kind of address that from the front. But, just finding different ways to help people move is key, and exposing them to different modalities and cardiovascular or weight training. So I think that, in a long line of exercises, I think that having things like HIIT training or doing weight training or doing CrossFit type training, those modalities all have their own benefits. I don't think there's any one answer when it comes to that either. But as far as best practices, discipline is number one. That's a huge thing for my life as an entrepreneur right off the gate. You already know this, Brad, but I'm going to say it for our listeners too. You have got to have discipline. And I think fitness is one of those arenas of life that's a direct practice every day of discipline. It's like, I don't know if you feel this way, but I certainly feel like there are days, including today, where I don't feel like working out. And I love to work out, but quite frankly, I don't have it in me every single day. I don't. I'm not saying people should work out every day, but having the discipline to say, you know what, I'm not going to take the easy route. I'm going to get my butt in there, and I don't care what I lift or what I move or how I jump rope. I'm going to stay there for 45 minutes and we'll see what happens. And next thing you know, you're 5 minutes in and it's like the light switch is starting to switch on. And I don't know if you felt that way, but you get to the end of a long day, you're feeling kind of gassed. You're like, oh, I got heavy poles today, or I got to get on that assault bike, that echo bike, and it's gonna be the pain cave, and you just kind of know it's coming. But getting yourself into those scenarios daily, at least for me, I can start to slide into being comfortable, right? Okay, you experience a small degree of success. Okay, well, maybe you're not working out as hard. Maybe you're not following up with every prospect quite as well as an entrepreneur. Maybe you're not having the quality of interactions you did when you first started with your members. Like, it starts to be this slow creep in every little vertical. And then you say to yourself, wow, I'm really getting comfortable. And so for me, I know I constantly have to make myself uncomfortable, do things on a daily basis, whether it's a 7-mile run. That's hard for me. I'm a bigger guy, so it's hard for me to get out there and pound pavement and do it super early, or
I've never run 7 miles, for the record, as well, just as a heads up. So that's kudos to you for running 7 miles at one time.
Dude, I literally do it, honestly, Brad. Like, I'm not a huge fan of that for me from a fitness modality, but for the mental toughness of just saying, can I sustain this agonizing effort for an hour? And that was important to me. I got really humbled. I did my first Spartan race last May with a buddy of mine, and it was a very humbling experience. So, I did okay. I didn't do nearly as well as I would have liked to think I would have done. So I was like, nope, you're going to run now, and you're going to get used to how this feels.
That's another one of those sports and, physical opportunities that for bigger guys, when you got to support your own body weight through some of the obstacles and it's a lot of running, that you're like, wow, all right, this translates in some ways, and in other ways doesn't translate at all to what I do in the gym.
Completely humbling, man. I had a decent obstacle score. I think there were 30 obstacles on my route, and I missed 7 of them. But the ones like the twister, and where they're having you do a lot of grip work and, vertical pulling, and then your heart rate's at 165, 170 beats per minute, and you're feeling gas because you're in mile 7 or 8 of the run. It was very humbling, very eye-opening, actually, because you're absolutely right. It was like, wow, I consider myself a semi-decent athlete, and now I'm here and I don't feel like I can hang at all. And so it was kind of like a wake-up call. It's like, whoa, there are so many different other levels of fitness and so many different parts to this thing that you haven't even tapped into, So I think it was really good for me in a lot of ways. But
I love it. A couple things that I heard you say there that I really loved was the one, discipline of like, hey, can we stay committed to something for the long haul, even on the days when the motivation maybe is lagging or it's been a tough day, and it's just figuring out what does that look like for you. If it's, like you said, 10, 15, 20 minutes in the gym, just getting a little bit of movement in, see if we can create a little bit of excitement once we get in there and start moving. And that might be helpful for our body. And then the second piece there of doing the challenging things, whether it's the Spartan race or the 7-mile run, because it's good. And it's in those moments where we start to notice, all right, here's some areas that maybe I can move the needle, or I can, try and develop or get a little bit better. And that gets us excited to sort of keep the journey moving forward, because we know, unfortunately, there's not really that end destination. Even if we have specific goals and competitions or events we're training for and getting ready for, there's just another one coming up after that, or there's a new challenge or a new opportunity. So having discipline, having the commitment to doing hard things sets us up to continually just see what we're capable of and what new ways we can challenge ourselves and have some fun with fitness and make it so it's not so rigid and complicated and challenging for people to access.
Right. And one of the things that I love that you said there, Brad, was continually. It's like, you and I will be the first people to tell others, unfortunately, you don't get to keep this strength and fitness thing if you stop putting in the work. It's not like you get here and you can pull 600 and you can squat 550 and you can power clean 340. Nope, you got to work for it every single day. And I think that's another thing I love about fitness is like you got to go out and pay those dues. And it's a lot like entrepreneurship in a lot of ways. It's like it requires work every single day. And it doesn't have to be an all-out effort. Like you said, sometimes the best fitness thing, go out for a 15-minute walk. Anything that you're doing that's better than what you did yesterday or more than what you would have otherwise done, in my book, is a big win. And I try to impress that on clients at level 6 too. It's like, if you were going to sit on the couch and be a lazy bug, but you got up after dinner and went for an evening walk for 20 minutes and it was brisk and you felt better, that's a win, right? That beats the socks off being a couch potato and being completely sedentary. And it sounds so simple and so like little, but that's a huge fundamental shift for people. Just those little things, you know?
Absolutely. It's amazing how much the little things add up over time. And I'm one of those people who fell into that bucket of like the all or nothing. Like if I can't get an hour workout in with all the components of this particular session, then like it's not worth it. Like I'm not even going to do anything. And right. I think that's the mindset shift that it's helpful to have other people have. And it's one of those things that I always love to hear from others too. When you think about the practices from your own life that help you to be building a better you, obviously movement is one of those cornerstones for you. Jeez. But there are so many options out there, and you hear all these experts talk about all these things we got to add into our life to, you know, elevate. So I'm curious to hear from you. Are there some cornerstone type practices or things you do on a daily basis that really feel like you're helping build a better you?
Ooh, that's awesome, man. First and foremost, I always try to educate myself on something. It could be it could be a variety of subjects. It could be science. It could be nutrition. It could be fitness. It could be something totally unrelated. It could be psychology. It could be human performance. So reading in any area, and this is just sitting down and getting used to reading and saying, all right, cool, we're going to sit here for 15 minutes and however many pages you get done, that's what you get done. And sometimes that's all I have time for, but for me, what I've realized about myself is that I really enjoy the prospect and the process of growth. And I think I'm my happiest when I'm pushing myself in a lot of different areas. And I feel like I start to get stagnant and stale if I start to, again, choose that comfort, choose that convenience, choose the easy path. So what I've noticed is even if I can commit myself to learning in any area or any subject of study, even if it's one little quick article or if it's a news clip or it's a podcast, I'm really big into podcasts and just listening to what experts have to say about a variety of subjects. I really enjoy learning, and I think it's something that I aim to keep up through my entire life. And obviously I like learning about business and personal success, but I think for me, growing daily is one of those cornerstones of my day. And it could look different. It could look like reading. It could look like listening to a podcast. It could look like waking up literally at 3:30 and going and running 7 miles. It could look like going for a 15-minute walk when I decided I was going to not do anything that day. It could be getting back to that last client or that last prospect. So I think just pushing myself and getting myself mentally conditioned to be in the space of, no, you have more. You can dig deeper. This is not the end of you, like coming to the end of myself and seeing what else is out there. So I guess in a lot of ways, it's kind of growth in testing myself and making sure I don't get too comfortable and complacent with where I'm at. I think that's definitely a pillar for me.
Absolutely love that. This idea of, hey, how do we continue to mentally stay stimulated, stay active, stay locked into the things we care about, or even the things that we're curious about, and bringing curiosity to whether it's the fitness or the business or financial stuff. Like that's such a critical component. So I'm curious to put you on the spot a little bit here. Please do, something that you've read or maybe listened to, something you've read or listened to recently that was something really meaningful that you'd love to share, whether it's like a book, a podcast, a magazine article. Was there something that for you that was like recent that you're like, ooh, this was a really good, piece that I'd love to share with others?
Yes. I am a huge fan, and this is a book I've read twice now. Okay. And this is weird because it is a work of fiction, but it's about success and development and like the greater pursuit of life. It's like a grand adventure. It's called The Alchemist. And I will butcher the author's name, and I apologize for this, but his name is Paulo Coelho, I believe. And and it's a very, very popular work of fiction. And you're like, how can a fiction book help you understand, the limited history of personal success and development and business? It is a fantastically written, layered tale of fiction, and I won't give away the plot, but it's about a shepherd who it enters the journey to fulfill his own personal legend, and it's a very inspiring book. And I had to go back and listen to it. I read it once in 2021, and then I just finished re-listening to it. I did it on audio as I was walking. But it is just such a powerful tale. And he goes into the desert and he meets this, enigmatic character known as the Alchemist in this desert oasis. And they kind of have this journey together, and he learns things about himself. And the way that it's layered in and applies to our lives, and how everyone has that own personal legend that they are seeking to fulfill in some way. It could be any way. I think we all have that calling within us. It's just one of those that I get something different from it every time I go back and read it. And I can't recommend it enough to people that are interested in stuff like that. And again, it is a fiction book, so it's kind of like, really? But it's just so fantastically well written. It's a great story. The audio has the voice of Jeremy Irons, who's got that deep, like baritone, like incredible narration voice. You just feel like you're on this epic adventure the whole time. Can't recommend it enough. But Alchemist, honestly, top 3 favorite books of all time. And it just the things that I'm able to get out of that story, and it's inspiring. It seems so silly, but you're listening to this tale, and you feel genuinely inspired after listening to it. And I think that's largely why it's so popular. So that's the number one I'd recommend.
Yeah, I've had a couple people mention that book, and I never knew what it was about. So this is the first time I've heard what the plot is about, and I feel like I'm going to go on Amazon as soon as we're done here and order that book, because now I'm really excited to take it in and see what it's all about.
It's the real deal, It's the real deal.
Oh, I'm super excited about that. Well, and I like this idea, this idea of practices of just like, what are those daily things that we like to do that can help us to build a better you, elevate the quality of life? So when you start working with clients, are there certain daily practices that you're trying to help them build? I mean, no, the one big one we usually see is like, okay, get some movement in with some fitness, but are there other practices, as someone who knows about nutrition and all these other things, that you try and help your clients to build? Or what are some simple things that you try and impress upon them that can really move the needle for themselves in their own lives?
Absolutely. You touched on fitness, number one. There's a common benchmark out there right now where people are starting to get used to the idea of 10,000 steps a day. And I think it's super important to impress upon the fact that, movement daily in that amount is really important for people. We mentioned the sedentary jobs. We mentioned the sedentary roles. People need to have a movement standard every day because our bodies are designed and wired for movement. So as you're kind of, going through these things, and then, understanding, okay, we got the movement piece. Now let's talk through the nutrition piece and getting the correct number. And this is usually where I start with people, the correct number of calories for you. So unfortunately, what I hear a lot of is people have been to conventional nutritionists or conventional registered dietitians, and they have simply been handed a stock nutrition plan. And just even saying that sounds so irresponsible, but it's where we're at, right? People getting medical care and some standardized care. I realize they can't customize it for everyone. However, it's often wrong for a lot of people. So the next closest thing we have to help people adjust is finding the right number of calories. And again, it could look like a macronutrient strategy, but a lot of people that are in a sorry physical state in terms of they're deconditioned, they have less than optimal body composition, have been taking in far too many calories for too long, and just getting them to understand the needs to develop a consistent caloric deficit, and just saying, hey, day after day, you want to be in a calorie deficit. Here's what this looks like responsibly for you. And it's not the crash diets of like, go out and eat 500 calories a day and take some vitamin B12 shots. And I've heard people utilize that strategy to great effect. I don't personally think it's the healthiest way to do things, But getting them to understand that next. So then you got the movement, you got the consistent caloric deficit, and then I love talking to them about recovery, right? Like we have intense workouts, we have intense hit style classes at level 6. You need to recover your body like an athlete, like you would as a CrossFit athlete. You need to, do things like, hey, supplement with some magnesium, get in, cold shower. If you're fortunate to have an ice bath, ice tub, go ahead and hit that, get things, restarted. And then teaching them some mobility and some stretches, I think are our 3 biggest cornerstones. So we have the movement, we have the nutrition, and then we have the recovery piece. And then I think the last piece that I try to touch on every now and then, and I don't mean to say that it's not important because it's probably the most important, is just getting sleep. We have a lot of clients that are, insomniacs, and their sleep schedule's all messed up, and they're averaging, 3-4 hours of sleep a night. And it's sleep accounts for a third of our life, roughly, for a reason. It's critically important for our neurochemistry, our hormones, our recovery. So just introducing them to the idea that a good night's sleep is important. And I think even I got away from that for a while, because in the fitness industry, as you know, Brad, like we kind of pride ourselves on being like early risers, and we're up at 4, you hear the guys that are up at 3 and they're, going in and lifting and doing all this stuff. And that's good. There's a lot to that. Like getting an early start to the day is important, but also building in time for your brain to recover. And I think that's important for our folks in terms of stress reduction and just overall quality of life. So I try to touch on sleep. It's not something that I emphasize nearly as much as I should probably. But if they get those 4 things right, they're on their way.
Yeah, I think if you look at the idea of building a better you, if you've got movement, you've got a way to eat, you've got recovery, which can include and probably should include, like you said, sleep. I mean, that is way in light years ahead of where folks are traditionally at these days. And the beautiful thing about it is that it's accessible to everybody. It's not something for only professional athletes or elites or those who have time. It can look very different for different people, but we still all have an opportunity to figure out what right looks like for us. And it sounds like with what you're doing over there at level 6, you have a really good opportunity to guide a lot of people. And then, it's kind of like that trickle effect. Somebody is engaging with some of those practices and they're looking and feeling better. And somebody's like, what's going on? And next thing you know, they tell one person after another, and it's this nice, beautiful effect of trying to impact as many people as you can. So I love those practices, and I think it's a really awesome way to try and make things palatable and accessible and easy for folks. And it usually starts with the movement and why they're coming through the doors. Next thing you know, you've got them on a lifestyle that feels like they can stay with it, and it's going to keep bringing back some of that good, like you said, neurochemistry, physiology, all those good big words. Like it's all coincided with each other.
Well, and what I love what you mentioned about that is they tell other people. And the way that I've always wanted to grow my business, even as selfishly as I could say to you, hey, Brad, I want to be super successful in business. We want a gym that has 600 clients. And what I love about what you said, it hit the nail on the head for me, is the way that we want to grow this community, our community, is organically. And it's the genuine recommendation of someone who's actually experiencing a true benefit, tells a friend, and it can positively impact their life. So all my personal aspirations aside, that is what I would take what you said 10 times out of 10, where it truly helps someone. So the business side of me would be like, no. But in reality, like impacting people in a quality, authentic, genuine way and being able to deliver that to them, even if it's 20% of what we just discussed, that is so much more important to me than any type of monetary success. I'm so glad you mentioned it that way, because it just really contrasted for me. It's like, that is the end goal of our business. It's not to make a ton of money. The end goal is to have an incredible impact in our community. And then hopefully some financial success is a byproduct of if we're doing that in a great way and it's authentic and it's real. It's not a marketing gimmick. It's not a flashy website. It's not a Instagram reel that looks super sexy and brings a million people in. Like, it's, hey, this is real and this is actually helping people long term. Like, that is more important to me than the other flashy, sexy stuff.
Yeah. And the one thing that I could hear really come through there was this idea of genuine, authentic, and in it for the long haul. You know that it's not the quick fixes that work, and it's not going to be the quick fixes that give people what they're hoping to experience in terms of their lifestyle. And it's a great place for us to finish up here with. I've got one more sort of question idea for you that I've loved asking people, because it might be what some folks are determining the most challenging question, but it just kind of depends on the guest here. But the idea around this, and you've highlighted a lot of pieces to it, is, we have this idea or this concept that, like, we've got a purpose, and it seems like you've got yours pretty dialed in of what you want to do. We've got some principles and we've got some practices, but I'd love to see, or I'd love to hear from you. Are there certain, like, principles or standards or the way that you think about how you orient your life and make decisions and things like that? I've heard you say a lot about, discipline and consistency and putting in the hard work, but are there just some things that come to mind for you of, like, hey, when I think about how I orient myself, make decisions, and move forward, like, what are the principles and the standards that are, like, my go-tos? Anything that come to mind for you there?
That isn't a fantastic question. I think for me, it always goes back to my values. And, I began one of those sections by talking about helping others develop their character. And it's been a personal undertaking of mine for a very long time to develop my own. And I think a lot of it, Brad, has to do with where I started. I felt like I didn't have a lot of character development. I didn't feel very tough. I didn't feel even close to what would be considered successful. I had low self-esteem. I was chubby. I didn't know what was going on. But I always had this driving energy, this driving force inside of me to kind of say, all right, what else is there? And I don't have to accept this current reality as it is, because there is a compelling future. So I think for me, when I orient myself around, like, a certain framework or a central guiding principle, it is truly to, like, fulfill what's going to cause me to grow. Right now, one of my most important roles among the many that I have is being a great father. It's being a great husband. It's being a great man of faith. And so a lot of the decisions that I filter through now, even the business notwithstanding, filter through that framework. And if it doesn't pass that test, hey, this is going to help me be a better father. This is going to help me be a better husband or a better friend or a better business owner of one who impacts people's lives. Then generally speaking, I'm not doing as many of those things. And I won't say I don't do them at all, but as I'm kind of, waking up each day and deciding what my priorities are, what social things I'm going to entertain, if it's not moving those metrics for me right now, then it doesn't get prioritized. And it's taken a lot of, like, just self-reflection and introspection and thinking about these things and saying, okay, what is ultimately going to lead me to my most fulfilled life? And that is having a fantastic family life. It's having a fulfilled and honest and all those good things marriage. It's being a business owner with integrity and ethics, and hopefully being a good friend at the end of the day. And again, I'm not saying I do those things now. I'm saying what I aspire to. So if people listen to this, like, that guy's not a good friend, some people may think I'm full of it, but that's really honestly what I think compels me each day is trying to be, better in those areas, as I make decisions. So,
I love the simplicity of it, of when you think about faith, family, and business, and making decisions and aligning yourself in a way that pushes those three areas of your life forward. It keeps things simple. It allows you to very quickly determine, is this going to help with the areas that are most important to me and help me both feel fulfilled, but also like I'm moving the needle for other people as well. So I think that's a perfect response there for you of this idea of faith and family and business, and just what helps to drive and push those things forward. So absolutely love that. So as we bring a close here, what I'd love to do is, one, I don't think I've ever actually heard level 6. Give us the background of like, what does it mean? But then the follow on is, how can people connect with you? So if folks are listening or interested of, hey, how do I get in touch with Emmitt and level 6? Cause it sounds like a great spot.
Sure.
What does level 6 mean? And how could people get in touch with you if they're interested to learn more?
Yeah. So level 6 actually is a double entendre, double play on words in a way. My middle name is actually 6, believe it or not, just like the number. So my name's Emmitt Terrell, and that comes from my mom's side of the family and my grandfather, who's one of the most inspiring figures present day in my life. He's an awesome guy. He is a Hall of Fame football coach. He played for the Marine Corps. He was a Marine for a number of years, and just always someone I looked up to as a man of great character. And he always had these incredible stories that he would sit and tell us when we were, growing up as kids. So he's someone that's really had a profound impact in a lot of ways in my life. So that's phase 1 of the name. It's like, okay, cool, level 6. Now I got my middle name in there. But also in traditional cardio training, there are 5 heart rate zones or 5 heart rate levels, right? And I remember I was working with one of my clients, I'll never forget it, at the first gym I worked at, and he had a heart rate tracker on. And I said, hey, and I'll say his name because he's given me permission to do so. I said, hey, Derek, what's your heart rate at right now? And he had one of those old Garmin, wrist worn deals on. And he looks at it and it's not picking up on any of the levels. And he's like doubled over. And he's like, it's level 6. It's level 6. It's above level 5. And so he said, if you ever get a gym, you have to name it that. And so I held good on my end of the deal, Derek, if you're listening to this out there, man. So that was 7 or maybe 8 or 9 years ago now. But so anyway, it's both, right? It's my middle name and it's that. But yeah, how people get connected. We have a website, level6training.com. We're on Instagram at level6training. We're on Facebook, the same, at level6training. And then for me personally, I'm at train with E6. They can check it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Only heard amazing things about people's experiences over there. So a great place to find that community with some challenging workouts that push that heart rate outside a zone that maybe you've ever experienced before, which is a fun place for people to experience. So, well, Emmitt, thanks so much for taking some time and hanging out today for the podcast. Great getting to hear you tell us your story, what drives you and what motivates you to keep pushing level 6 forward along with your family. So thanks so much for taking some time today. Look forward to connecting again soon with you.
Yeah, it sounds great, Brad. Thanks again for having me on, man. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks.